Okay, amazing. Awesome. So I will give the intro spiel and then turn it right over to Dr. Stone. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to today's medical student grand rounds. I am not Dr. Stone or Anna, so I will make this as quick as possible. I'm Allison, one of the MSGR organizers, and I just wanted to quickly overview what MSGR is and keep you guys posted to what we are planning this coming year. So next slide. As I'm sure many of you are already aware, MSGR was created last year to acknowledge medical student achievements and passion. The setup of every talk will be a medical student presenter introduced by a faculty mentor. And we are planning on holding them every first and third Tuesday of each month at noon for the foreseeable future via Zoom. This month is an exception because of the holidays, so we are very grateful for Anna's flexibility in presenting today on the second Tuesday, and we hope to update the entire student body soon with our second talk of the month on the 25th. And if Anna's talk really inspires you and you know other OSU Comm medical students who might be a good fit to give an MSGR talk, please feel free to use this QR code to nominate another presenter. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Dr. Stone for Anna's introduction.
Hi, I'm Dr. Linda Stone, Special Assistant to the Dean for Humanism and Professionalism. It is such a privilege to introduce Anna Farrell for this special medical student grand rounds. Her voice is such an important one as a medical student wishing to further incorporate the medical humanities into medical education. The Ohio State University College of Medicine strives to remain on the cutting edge of the humanism in medicine and medical humanities movement, and it is our students that are making that happen. Anna's work has brought her into a world of challenge, but also one of hope. The medical humanities are foundational to the historical legacy of medicine and vital to today's practice of medicine. Anna's background in literature, her love of writing, her leadership in this area as both an undergraduate and a medical student, and her love of medicine have brought her to this point in time when so many possibilities lie ahead. To create a more kind and caring place to care for our patients, educate our students, residents, and fellows, and perform meaningful research, we need the healing presence of the arts now more than ever. Anna Farrell has prepared herself to work with an emerging team of medical student leaders to bring the medical humanities into greater focus through a potential medical humanities certificate program. This would be a huge win for the OSU College of Medicine, but an even bigger win for medical students seeking a broad knowledge base for their future practice. Working with Anna on our Voices in Humanism program and the Physicians for Human Rights collaboration with the Ohio Reformatory for Women has shown me the breadth of her leadership skills, her passion for serving others, and her commitment to the medical humanities. Today, we are honored to hear from this amazing young woman. We look forward to your presentation today, Anna, and thank you for doing that.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Stone. I know that Ohio State would not be the home it is for me without having met you so early on in your mentorship. I'm incredibly grateful for all of the support you've given me and students throughout the whole college. And thanks to all of you for taking time out of your day to sit and listen to me talk and share more about what I've learned about how we can possibly integrate the arts and the humanities into medical education. If you have any questions throughout the talk, please drop them into that question and answer in the chat. And then at the end, there's going to be some time saved, and student council representatives are going to help me synthesize the questions and hopefully get answers to you. And if I don't answer any of your questions, I've provided my email here, but it'll also be at the end of the talk. And please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm extremely passionate about working in this space, and I love to meet new people who feel the same way. So what I will be talking to you about today is an introduction into why I love this material so much, why I believe it is important to educate our student doctors in the medical humanities and how it can help us become more empathetic physicians, an overview of what is going on across our country in programming and aims and reports, And then finally, to bring it back close to home and talk about initiatives that are ongoing at Ohio State that you might not have heard of and you might want to be involved with. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about how I believe we can continue to grow this space at Ohio State and wherever you find yourself in the future. And there's no better way for me to share about myself than to talk about the people who brought me up. This is a picture of me and my dad from several years ago. My dad is an illustrator and a painter. His father was an illustrator as well, and I've got some of his art in my room on a different wall. And it's been so inspiring to grow up in a household where dinner time conversations could easily revolve around our favorite paintings, how they make us feel. My grandfather was also an English teacher, and so coming home to talk to him about the poetry we were learning about in class and what resonated with us and our favorite writers was so much fun. And you can imagine that growing up in this artistic household, I might have dabbled a little bit myself. And that art imitates life, no? But in all seriousness, growing up with a family that believes so strongly in the power of the arts gave me such an appreciation for everything around me, the world around me, and seeing it through different lenses has been really important to my upbringing. And both of my parents were involved in music as well. My dad played blues harmonica and the saxophone. My mom toured her home country of Ireland in a traditional Irish family band, or not a family band. The rest of her family was also very musical. And my sister and brother inherited these talents for sure. My sister graduates from college this year, and she's been formally studying music ever since probably before middle school. And one of my greatest joys as an older sibling has been to sit in the audience and watch her lead from her first chair, various symphonies and orchestras, and also just hearing her practicing at home as we're bumbling about the house, cooking and doing whatever else in our days. And my brother, every time he comes home, he brings home international music that he's been learning about from Senegal, Colombia. He has a knack for picking up instruments. I think if Kieran's listening right now, we might be on instrument 6. I can't remember, but it's been so much fun just growing up in this home that has such an appreciation for the arts and the humanities. And it wasn't until I entered college myself and I began studying English concurrently with neuroscience that I realized my love of literature and the arts could be married to my pursuit of becoming a physician. And this is really what the medical humanities as a field encapsulates. This field began in the 1960s and really picked up initiative and traction around the turn of the century. Creative thinkers were trying to envision how we can grow a deeper understanding of what it means to be healthy, what is illness, and trying to get a better appreciation for the breadth of humanity and the intimacy that forms between a relationship and the patient and the physician through all various contexts and time and space. The medical humanities is a very, very broad field. If you think about anything that constitutes the humanities independently, history, philosophy, religion, literature, art history, if it's looking at this juncture between the physician and the patient, if it's questioning what it means to be healthy and what is healing across cultures, this could constitute medical humanities. Some argue that social sciences and bioethics also fall into this field, and I would completely agree. And the arts also offer more things into this conversation by looking at the creative expressions of patients, physicians, about the illness experience. These are things that can't be fully captured by a textbook. And so the arts and the humanities are able to grant us more insight into what it truly means to be a patient and to feel these things. Of course, we are all patients in some respect, but no path is the same. Everyone is unique. And so this is a really powerful field that can help us become more empathetic clinicians and grant us a broader understanding into practice and the events of the world around us. And while this started in the 1960s, it actually has roots that go all the way back to ancient Greece. Hippocrates said, "Wherever the art of medicine is loved, there is also a love of humanity." And so we get this understanding of medicine, not just as the science and the hard biomedical knowledge that we need to be the most skilled, competent physicians possible, but also the art that make us more compassionate as well. And when the Hippocratic Oath was revised in the 1960s, we found this phrase: "I will remember that there is an art to medicine as well as a science, and that the warmth, sympathy, and understanding may outweigh the surgeon's knife or the chemist's drug." And I think it's interesting to point out that the original Hippocratic Oath, it was sworn on 4 Greek gods, one of which was Apollo, the god of medicine. He is a god of many things in addition to this, and one of them being poetry, which I think is an interesting relationship that can possibly speak to the power of poetry to heal as well as medicine to treat. Because that's really what the medical humanities can offer our field. What we try to do as clinicians is extend the longevity and improve the quality of our patients' lives. But the medical humanities begs the question, what are we living for? And the answer to that question is going to change from patient to patient. And so we get an appreciation for the various priorities that drive the direction of care that we will take. The question not only sits at the stasis of what's the matter with the patient, but it delves further into what matters to the patient themselves. And that is so important always, but especially when we think about the past couple years that we have all been through. I think everyone, almost everyone, has lost something, someone, some dreams in the past 3 years because of the COVID pandemic, the bubbling up of all these injustices going around in society. And we are burnt out. There was a pace of burnout. It was accelerating even before COVID hit. This is just the number of times that burnout was hit in PubMed, all the way up from the 70s to the 2019. And you can see this rapid climb. And this is before we even got a pandemic. In from May to October of 2020, the American Medical Association was trying to get a better gauge of how healthcare workers were doing. And they asked if patients or if providers were experiencing anxiety or depression. This is 38%. If they were feeling burnt out, 49% said that they were feeling burnt out. And I want to add that this survey was delivered to over 20,000 healthcare professionals. If you think about the magnanimity of these numbers, it's astounding. And we want to think about how we can protectively educate our students by equipping them with the skills to help prevent this anxiety, depression, burnout, and then work overload. How can you not feel these things when you're so overloaded? And this data was collected in October of 2020. Now we're entering into our 3rd season of COVID, and you can only imagine how these numbers might have changed. We're getting a mass exodus of people who are feeling completely strained and having to take a step back from their practice, and we want to prevent that from happening. Here's just another graphic to just to testify to the fact, while my talk is about the education of student doctors, there are healthcare workers, all healthcare workers are feeling this strain. This is a graphic where the radius is a summary of stress scores on a survey that was delivered to patients. You can read more about this article that was published in the Lancet Clinical Medicine magazine, but you can just see everyone is feeling this strain. And so that makes the medical humanities and what it can deliver all the more important now. We get programs here like at Johns Hopkins for emergency medicine physicians that give us the opportunity to come out of ourselves and look at things that are going on, or artistic works or writings from that cross time and space. And we get to see that we aren't the first people who have felt stress. What does it mean? Why did we enter medicine in the first place? These medical humanities programs really give us a great perspective, seeing ourselves as a piece of part of a much wider puzzle, and reflecting on why we entered medicine in the first place and what a gift it is to be able to enter this vocation where we care for others and help improve their lives and some of what is their most vulnerable moments. But you might ask, what do the medical humanities really do? Really? And what if I already have coping strategies? Well, I think for this first question, I hope by the end of this talk, you'll get a better understanding of what the data supports and the values of medical humanities programming. If you already have coping strategies, I applaud that. Don't lose sight of them. We need all the help we can get to get through our training and be able to process things around us healthily. But I also would argue that having getting coping skills from various contexts grants us an agility to deal with unanticipated obstacles. And then finally, we're already learning so much in our curriculum. It's day 2 of the semester, and I, for one, I've had a bit of a rude awakening to the call of everything that we have on our plates. How can we add even more into our curriculum? And what's the value of that? And I hope that you see through this integrated approach to education, which I'll discuss later in this talk, that it is doable, that programs are doing it and with great success. And then as far as how could this possibly help me become a better physician? I want to introduce you to Santiago Ramone y Cajal. Growing up, he wanted to be an illustrator. His father was an anatomy professor and was not satisfied with his son entering into medicine, and he wanted better for him. And so he forced a begrudging Santiago to come out and collect anatomical specimens for his laboratory. But it was actually through this collection of the anatomy that Santiago became completely, marvelously overwhelmed with the complexity of the human body. He began doing anatomical sketches, and his love of this illustration actually pushed him to apply and enter into medical school. At the completion of his training, he was drafted into the Spanish Civil Army to be a medical officer, and he worked overseas in Cuba. And you can imagine all of the loss and violence that he was seeing there and how that could grant him a greater empathy to be a physician and help people in some of the times of greatest need. Sorry, let me go back. And now we have Santiago Ramone y Cajal that we all know from our textbooks, the father of neuroscience, the one who discovered a neuron. Or he in his lab discovered a neuron. There are many people behind these accomplishments. And you might think, how did his artistic training really benefit him in this field? Well, one, it pushed him into medicine in the first place, and it gave him an appreciation that probably drove a lot of his curious inquiry into what's going up in our neurological structures, what's going on up there. But also, his illustrations of neurotissue are world-renowned. They tour all over the different continents, and people who might not have had an interest in medicine or the brain outside of the neuroscience community travel immense lengths just to lay their eyes on these incredible illustrations. And so his passion for the arts helped him connect with a far more broader community and excite people about everything that research is doing and the amazing nature of our human bodies. He also wrote a book of short stories called The Vacation Stories, and I've read them. They're delightful. But not only are they entertaining, they also bring forward a lot of really important discussion in medical ethics. And so you can see that this interdisciplinary background of Dr. Ramone y Cajal's upbringing really bore such creative fruit that allowed him to reach out to so many people who he wouldn't have been able to before. And there are several fields that I think the medical humanities can serve within healthcare. We talked about patient care and how it can help improve communication and empathy in providers. Of course, this assists medical education and our ability to communicate nuanced and multifaceted narratives about our patients and really respecting their humanity. In research, we saw the creative fruit that could be born from Dr. Ramone y Cajal, but also getting a better understanding of all the communities that have, unfortunately, in our history, suffered from unethical research practices and how we can go forward building repair and having with that knowledge of what the humanities can bestow on what we've done and how we can reconcile with these communities and moving forward to advance well-being. Health policy and public health both deal with trying to improve community well-being. And I would say artists and residents, everyone is trying to do this as well. So having these, that overarching aim and being able to have the communication skills and the creative problem solving that medical humanities can grant, assist the drafting of this legislation or interventions in a responsible way that ensures that the residents are still at the focus, and they're the ones who are really going to be benefiting from the work being done. Oh, excuse me. And then healthcare administration. I already touched on this already, but the problem solving and analytical skills that are further honed through close text reading in the medical humanities and fine analysis in the arts is crucial here in being able to produce great products that are working to support the communities that our health institutions serve. So I've provided an overview of my personal connection to this topic and why I believe the medical humanities are relevant. And now I would like to talk a little bit more about programs that are going on nationally. In 2020, the Association of American Medical Colleges, or as we call it, the AAMC, produced a report called The Fundamental Role of the Arts and Humanities in Medical Education. This was really galvanized by research being done that looked at how medical humanities were improving those soft skills that I mentioned earlier, from teamwork, resilience, communication, and I could go on all day, but I know I only have an hour. But the AAMC has provided 8 grants, pretty sizable ones, to universities across the country to encourage further development of medical humanities and arts programming. And Ohio State is actually one of the recipients, and I'll be talking about that later on in my talk, what we're doing. But what these programs could look like, they could be a single session activity that includes arts and humanities experiences. They could be woven into an existing course or throughout a clinical rotation. They could be a standalone course within a program. And then finally, it could be a longitudinal track that interweaves arts and humanities throughout a whole series of courses and electives. In 2018, a report was issued that said 94% of medical programs cite having some sort of medical humanities initiative. And you think, how broad is this? What could this possibly look like? And I just wanted to highlight some here, whether it's medical humanities and global health, literature and medicine, narrative medicine. There's a lot of opportunities in this field. And it kind of can be daunting when trying to envision how you can make it work for your program. But I also want to infuse a bit of hope, saying because the medical humanities are so broad, there's a lot of opportunity for adaptation and how we can use it to improve our clinical education. The AAMC did a scoping review about what these programs truly look like on the ground, since it is so broad. And I want to emphasize that 60% of programs are based on literature, but there are also many others that exist. You can look at the entertainment industry sort of being represented here with theater and drama, film and television. There's visual art here as well. And it goes all the way down to history, religion, comics. It's incredibly broad, which means that there's a wealth of opportunity for us to design programming. And I want to highlight some of these programs now that were mentioned in the AAMC's report, just so you can get a better understanding of what hands-on experience actually look like. Starting with medical improv, here are some pictures from Northwestern and then the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And you might be thinking, why as medical students, I would have gone to Hollywood, I would have gone into acting if I thought I had those skills. But if you think about what improv can grant us, you might see some correlations between that and then what the medical profession demands of us as well. If you think about being able to think and act quickly on your feet, being proactive anticipating what other people are going to do, but not holding an assumption, because it could be completely wrong. And then you have to throw out this whole script that you designed in your brain. You have to be perceptive, both in nonverbal and verbal cues. And you have to be able to work with others that you may not have ever met before. And these are just some of the skills that I can imagine translating into clinical practice. But I think one of the other great things to emphasize is just imagine the sort of community that is built between students who participate in something like this. I, for one, would be very much in my stretch zone participating in this program. And you have to get comfortable with, in a fun way, just you're going to make mistakes and you're going to say silly things and do a lot of ridiculous actions and being given a script that gives you a silly scenario. But you have to be able to work within that and have a good time doing so. And you become easier on yourself, and you also are able to rely on your teammates more. And then you take this cohort that went through this fun experience that strengthened these skills, and you put them all in clinical years of medicine, where they are seeing some of the hardest things that they have ever seen in their lives. They're under incredible duress that they haven't felt before. And they're also going to be participating in this fulfilling work that they have been studying for all their lives. And you're going to make mistakes. And that's just a part of the learning process. And now you have a team of people who have got your back, and you know you can turn to them, and you've built a rapport, and you can support each other through this process. The University of California, San Diego runs a similar program, and you can see that there was statistically significant improvement in participant engagement with their community, wellness, communication, proactivity. And if you remember the burnout statistics that I presented earlier, look at this wellness improvement, look at that jump. And if we're talking about what we want our medical education to raise, we want people to have preventative coping skills and a better wellness. These are programs that we want to model ourselves after. Northwestern, as I mentioned, has a course called Playing Doctor, and they administered this survey to 87 students who took the course. And you can see the items on the survey look at feeling free to fail, having better listening skills, being more present in the moment and more observant, and then being more adaptive and flexible, which is one thing that we know COVID, all of us have had to learn how to deal with this. And then, but there are two items that I particularly wanted to point out. One, that studying improv could make me a better doctor. 95% of the students who took this class agreed. And then I would recommend this class to other medical students, 100% of people. So then moving from medical improv to narrative medicine, we get another understanding of a different practice that can instill a lot of these similar skills. These are some students at Temple University engaging in writing activities through their narrative medicine program. In narrative medicine, it really is forcing students, or the whole idea of narrative medicine is trying to get physicians to engage in reflection about their relationship with themselves, their relationship with their patients, their relationship with their interprofessional healthcare teams, and then their relationships with society and their communities more broadly as advocates and leaders. An example of what a narrative medicine course description or summary might look like, you can see it has novels, writing exercises, and the sample course material is really important here because it can speak to stressors that students commonly experience when they're going through their training. And you can also see that it engages discussion with both the doctor's experiences as well as the patient's. And so we get to see the physician-patient relationship as bidirectional, which I think engages that perspective taking that can deepen our understanding. And then there are reflection practices, and there are lots of different genres that are addressed here. And this is just an example, but there are many across the country that do this. Another program that is focusing on narrative medicine has a different tactic. And it's offered to students in their third year psychiatry rotation. And the whole practice of this program is the students they develop a relationship with one of their patients that they saw in an appointment or inpatient, and they sit down with them and hear their story. They translate it and write it up. They meet with a mentor to discuss how they could further improve it. And then they go back to the patient and they say, is this reflective of your experiences? Are there certain things you would want me to add or redact to be able to be more representative of how you felt going through your process and with your condition? And the medical students who participated in this program came away they sent in surveys and responses that indicated 4 main areas. The first being that they had improved communication skills by going through this practice, both in communicating with patients, but also with other healthcare professionals by meeting with their mentors and discussing what their patients are encountering. This exercise granted them greater insight, both into what it means to be a physician working with people from all various backgrounds, dealing with various illnesses and conditions, their joys, their sufferings, but also insight into what our patients are enduring and how we can be more empathetic and understanding in our communications with them. And one of the things that I liked the most of reading this study was this exercise fostered hope in students feeling that they can enter this field and really benefit their patients' lives. We've all written personal statements getting into medical programs or wherever you are right now. And in those statements, we made promises to ourselves that we wanted to serve our patients and talking about the various ideals that drew us to this vocation. And those were confirmed by engaging and reflecting through narrative medicine. However, there were some mixed reactions or negative reactions even that were reported in student comments. And the professors and the professional investigators of this course attribute those mainly to poor matching of patient and medical students in their working relationship maybe didn't work as well. In psychiatry, there are a lot of really, really difficult contexts and strains that are put on the patients and they're experiencing, and all of that can obviously influence your interactions. And so that's what those were attributed to. And I wanted to highlight Columbia's group of narrative medicine. The founder of this group and head of it actually was a trailblazer of this field. And ever since the COVID pandemic hit, they've been offering their group sessions virtually online for free. And you can go to their website. They have a blog. Just type in Columbia Narrative Medicine blog. And they offer several of these sessions every week, often usually at lunchtime around noon or 6 Eastern time. And I have been to many of these, and they are incredibly grounding and really thought-provoking for me. And they're often just an hour. They're just an hour, and it involves some close text reading, discussion, and people are zooming in from all around the world and from various healthcare institutions and talking about their experiences and what the pieces mean to them. And then there's a short writing exercise at the end. And I highly recommend, if this engaged piques any of your interests, please attend. It's an hour, and it's really great to immerse ourselves into different interdisciplinary contexts to grow our interests and experiences. I also want to talk about music and the programming that exists across America here in medical education. There's a course called Jazz and the Art of Medical Education. And if you think about jazz, it's a very improvisational genre of music. Think about even just the birth of scat and how that came forward. People just feeling things and when the right moments were to interject. And so this course curriculum takes these 3 elements of scat. First, being able to build space into one's communication. How do you create these musical moments that you can kind of intervene and do your little, maybe my dad can come in with his saxophone. And a lot of this translates into how physicians and patients or how their communication goes. So the course is set up to have, you have moments where you listen to pieces of music, you reflect on certain things and how music speaks to each other. And then there are often complementary readings or writing prompts that then say, building space into one's communication in music is related to the physician-patient interaction that we see in clinic. But also in music and in life, you have to learn how to develop your own voice and find a place to advocate for yourself and for your patients. And so that's the translation there that the curriculum speaks to. And then finally, in the production of music, you achieve an ensemble and everything is hopefully harmonious and works together into creating a beautiful piece. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with our healthcare teams, people from all various backgrounds, walks of life, to provide care within our own capacities and work in coordinated synchrony. And so that's what we're trying to do with trying to relate the music and medical education. That's what people are working for, and the Jazz and the Art of Medicine course is really structured to instill in students who are taking it. And then visual art programming exists as well. And there are many skills that can be taken from this. One of which is enhanced observation. The longer you sit at something, like sit looking at a painting, the more things will jump out to you. And your perception skills certainly increase. And then if you're doing this in teams, like the visual arts programming often entails, you have better socialization with your team and trying to discuss, oh, I think that shape might be a hat. I think that person is feeling this. I think this is the background of what's going on. I think this painting is trying to share blank with us. And of course, what I love about this picture is there are 4 students looking at this vista, and all 4 of them are probably thinking of different things and noticing different things. And this socialization, being able to talk about it and discuss, is really invigorating. But it also is going to help prepare us in the future, because right now, as a second-year medical student, I'm trying to just master what is happening, like what's the pathological process, mechanism of action, what are the treatments that are available. But then when I go out into the field and practice, the question certainly about what is happening is vital. But I think a lot of the difficulty arises with, yeah, we know this treatment exists, but whether or not we should administer it, depending on what the patient's priorities are and the different contexts. And so this navigating that situation in teams through visual arts, just talking about various ambiguous and relative pieces will help prepare us for that in the future. And then finally, visual arts programming has been reported to reduce burnout symptoms experienced by medical students. And once again, just drawing it back to the burnout that we're seeing accelerated throughout this past couple of years, that is so, so important if we're trying to raise a new generation of physicians to enter this field. Film also has been used across the country. There's a documentary film class offered at Stanford's medical school. And this textbook, Cinema Education, gives an overview for how we can use film in all sorts of medical education, whether it's to complement, a biochemistry lecture about genetic disease with a documentary that features people who have that disease and what that might be like. Or perhaps it's providing scenes that demonstrate different cultures and patient communities that we will be serving one day, and to enhance our cultural humility and delivery of equitable care. These are all opportunities for just some of them for how film can possibly enhance our curriculums. And a European medical school offered an opportunity to watch scenes from the film 150 milligrams. They had a pre-intervention assessment and a post-intervention assessment. And then you watch these scenes and there were discussions in small groups just about the ideas that were being presented in it. And you can see the value of cinema education here in just this study. You have 3rd, 5th, and 6th year undergraduate medical students different, European curriculums. You can take medicine as an undergraduate. But here, look at the changes in their assessment scores. I mean, with a significance of 0.001. So this is really something we want to think about and how we can creatively integrate the arts and humanities into our existent programming to produce results that really instill in the ideas that we're trying to convey in our lectures. And this programming doesn't just have to stop in medical school. Actually, this past week, I spoke with someone at Nationwide Children's Hospital who has been doing integrated research looking at narrative medicine within her residency program. And I wasn't able to share any of the data that she's collected. It's currently under review and it's going to be published soon, hopefully. But she created a lot of small group sessions. They had a survey sent out to residents to identify what the stressors are. They selected comics, poems, short stories, and novels that talked about those things and engaged with those stressors. And then once a month, I believe it was once a month, there are certainly programs that do a similar thing offered regularly throughout the year, a 1-hour session where you just reflect on a close text reading. Residency is incredibly busy. You might think, how am I going to have time to read like 4 novels or all these things? If you haven't done any of the materials or the homework, you're still welcome to show up and contribute. And just reflect and discuss with everybody. And the residents that complete these programs, they're offered all around the country, often report better emotional or a reduction in emotional exhaustion and more hope and community building, and feel much better about how to deal with the various things that may present difficulty in residency. And so I've given an introduction about my interests, an overview of the national programming and why I believe medical humanities matter. And now I am excited to share with you more about initiatives that are at Ohio State and ongoing. It's an incredible university to be at, and I can't wait to dive into this. So here are the ones that I'm limiting to right now. There are so many programs and extracurricular groups, but a lot of these have arisen in the past year, and I want to give them a lot of highlight and also present opportunities that are perhaps outside of the medical school because we are so siloed in our various programs that it's hard to look up and see what else is going on at a university so large as Ohio State. The first being the Master's in Medical Humanities program. This began in the fall of 2020, so it's very young. And there are medical students who have taken a gap year to be able to complete their Master's in Medical Humanities and then return to their clinical years to be able to apply all the skills that they've learned. And this course, I've included some information here at the bottom if you're interested in learning more. There's a foundational course in medical humanities, another one about research methods. You have options for what kind of English courses you want to take. You have to take classes outside of the English department as well, because that's what interdisciplinary study is, stretching your capacity. And then you have 6 hours of flexible elective courses that you can fulfill in a variety of listed content. All of them look amazing. The listed courses are available online. I encourage you to check it out. Okay. Last spring, a public health and the arts minor was approved. This is an amazing effort that offers a unique thing that a lot of medical humanities programs don't, because medical humanities focuses on the interpersonal relationships within healthcare. But public health and the arts looks at a more broader perspective of how maybe artists and residents, everyone here wants community well-being just as much as people working within public health. And how can we unite the arts and public health to try and uplift communities and improve their quality of life and address the various issues and increase awareness about the things that neighborhoods and communities are facing. The College of Medicine, as we all know, offers advanced competencies. These are a part of our graduation requirements. You have to fulfill one, take one before you graduate. And there are many options here. Dr. Stone is involved with several, including the Humanism and Professionalism in Medicine. And this doesn't quite focused entirely on studying the humanities or the arts, but a lot of the themes that we talk about with art or medicine being not just a science, but an art as well, and how we can maintain that in our clinical encounters and our relationships on our teams. All of that is just a recurring thread throughout this whole course. And what an amazing opportunity to work on that as a team longitudinally in an advanced competency. There's also one called From Pages to Bedside, and that is, not to reduce it to anything, but a medical student book club, really. And books might not be about illness per se, it could be about all sorts of things. But of course, it's going to touch on the breadth of human experiences, which as clinicians, we're going to be encountering day to day in and out in our clinic, in the hospital, and throughout our education. And so I've participated in these too, and it's so much fun. They're student led. It's an incredibly opportunity for peer-to-peer teaching and just engaging with people that you probably wouldn't have met before that might be in another year from you. And then finally, I touched on earlier how the Ohio State has gotten a grant from the AAMC. And this grant has been used for the development of an advanced competency, which is currently being piloted and on our horizon, so keep your eye out for it, called Traveling on Time, Journeys to Equity. And it focuses on this opera called Vanqui. And the person who wrote the opera put it together, produced it, composed it, is actually one of the instructors for the course. So what an amazing opportunity to be able to sit down with someone with that experience and knowledge and creative thinking and talking about these themes. It's set in the pre-Civil War America, and it addresses racial disparities, conflict resolution, and a lot of communications that and ideas that are so relevant to today. And especially as we move forward in our care and trying to provide equitable care and rectifying disparities that we're seeing in health outcomes. I think this course provides an incredible foundational understanding moving forward, and what a creative way to do this. And actually Vanqui, the opera, is going to be offered, I think it's going to happen, Dr. Stone was saying, in the next couple of years in Columbus by Opera Project Columbus. So keep an eye on the horizon for that. If you're unable to take this class for whatever reason, look into perhaps attending the opera itself. You don't need to be aficionado necessarily of opera or super knowledgeable about all these things, but I think challenging yourself to step into new contexts and gain more experiences, that's what it's all about. And I think an openness to all of this, medical humanities and the arts, that's really all that is demanded of you, is just an open mind and enthusiasm and a willingness to try things. And so keep an eye out for Vanqui. And then finally, well, maybe not finally, second to last, the disability studies specialization is something that's offered at Ohio State. And it's, I think, housed within the English department. You can join the listserv here, and it's fun to see all the different things that are going on, programming, academic availabilities, and courses that you can take, and panels that you can attend. And you get a chance to engage with people within the disabilities community, learn more about how you can become a better advocate if you aren't a member of it yourself, and just broaden your understanding of how we can increasingly make our environments more inclusive. And if you have questions about that might require more of an individualized response, I've provided this email here. You can also look up the disability studies specialization online and see more of the materials that they have to offer. But it seems like an amazing community, and I want to encourage you all to get involved. The My Life, My Story program is something that happens nationally. And it's really helps students they sit down and they do a similar thing to what I talked about with a psychiatry clerkship, where you sit down with a veteran and you hear their story, you translate it into a piece, into a product, and then you come back to them and say, how does this reflect your experiences? It's an amazing way to gain an appreciation for the people who have spent their lives protecting our country and the things that they have suffered for that freedom. And 94% of staff in this one study here that I've taken a screenshot of read the notes developed by students that were participating in this My Life, My Story program. And over 86% believed that it was a good use of their clinical time and helped them provide better treatment of care. And so Ohio State just this past year became a home base for people within Columbus that wanted to work at the VA and develop personal narratives for the people who've served our country. So you can look into that as well. And then finally, the art of analysis was born out of the previous dean of medical, or the previous dean at the College of Medicine reached out to the Columbus Museum of Art saying, I want to enhance our students' abilities to deal with ambiguity, work in interprofessional spaces, and reflect. And so they designed this programming and happens semesterly. It's just a one-time event for a couple hours. I was able to participate just this past year. They brought it back after COVID. And what an amazing opportunity to be able to sit down and discuss what we think is going on. It was really, really fun and liberating to be in a new environment and experience something so novel and hard to come by in our fast-paced education, a chance to sit back and reflect. So keep an eye on your inbox. There will be more events in the future. It's been going on for a few years now, COVID accepting. And I, again, encourage you to participate, and it's an amazing opportunity. So future directions that we can possibly take this. I think we need an interdisciplinary academic think tank almost to brainstorm ways that how we can create a practical and easily feasible way of integrating the arts and humanities into our curriculums. Sorry, my points aren't clicking in here. Oh, okay. We want to encourage accessible medical humanities opportunities. Dr. Stone touched on this, but I've been working with several people in our class, the second year class at Ohio State, to develop a certificate program, say if you were unable to do the master's program. And I'm really grateful for all of my peers who have been helping me develop this content. We're meeting with our instructor this week to work on our proposal for a clinical applications medical humanities course. Hopefully it will be submitted soon and you'll be seeing it. Interprofessional education is a major area where you can see some growth. The scoping review that I mentioned earlier by the AAMC identified interprofessional education opportunities for the medical humanities to be a major gap. And so conversations have been going on in their early stages about how we can make this more accessible and available through IPE initiatives at Ohio State. And then finally, in order to testify to the importance to get the money to support these programs and also encourage faculty to come to Ohio State to work on these sorts of ideas, we want to produce research that is measuring how the initiatives that we're creating are influencing student wellness and enhancing clinical performance. And I want to close with a stanza from one of my favorite poems, Gaudemus Igitur, which was written by a poet and cardiologist, John Stone. And he said, "For there will be the arts, and some will call them soft data, whereas in fact, they are the hard data by which our lives are lived." There's a QR code here. If you have any feedback for me, thank you so much for your time and attention. And if you have any questions, please throw them in the chat. I know I ran over a bit, but I'm so grateful for all of your time.
Amazing presentation, Anna. It looks like you do have 2 questions in the chat. I don't know, Dr. Stone, do you want to read these questions to Anna as her faculty introducer?
I am going to have to sign off because I have another meeting, but I think they were going to have someone else help with the Q&A.
That's perfect. I will take care of that then.
Well, thank you.
So, yeah, for sure. Thank you, Dr. Stone.
Well, thank you. And Anna, that was great.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stone. Have a great day.
Too. Bye-bye.
So our first question for you, Anna, is what do you believe is the role of the College of Medicine leadership in furthering some of these initiatives, or do you already think that they're doing enough?
I guess here at Ohio State, we have a lot of people who are passionate about, in administration, passionate about doing what the students are interested in. I think when I came in the fall of my first year, I never anticipated that I would be sitting down having a one-on-one conversation with the Dean of Medical Education and talking about how we can advance this on campus. So I think that is really heartening moving forward. Some things that we could potentially do are trying to think about how we can integrate the using the arts and humanities as a vehicle for talking about these things that we've been trying to make more present in our education, whether that's conversations about health, social determinants of health, health disparity, developing a greater cultural competency in our physicians. I think that those are all that's room for future development. And I know that there are conversations about this. I think faculty and administration is really responsive to what students are interested in. So a lot of it should come from us. But even the programs that I mentioned already, that just testifies to how across the college, not just within the medical school, we have a lot of national leaders working within the medical humanities. So we should really harness that energy. And I'm hoping that this talk has maybe spurred up some more interest on the student end. And please reach out to me, anyone who has these interests, and I can help connect you or build connections with what we're currently doing. I would love to see this grow. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much for that very thorough response. And then our final question, which is a good one, I think, to end on is, what were the most challenging and then also the most rewarding parts about implementing these curricular changes related to medical humanities here at the College of Medicine?
I think I just maybe partially answer this. I think the most rewarding thing has been just seeing how much is already ongoing and being able to, I think we can always chase down the paths that we're doing, and it's hard to see what other people are doing, maybe a mile down the road, but in a completely different department we would never have met before. And so building bridges to try and facilitate more interdisciplinary collaborations and connections when we're all aiming to do the same things has been incredibly rewarding. The most challenging, it's maybe the flip side of the same coin, the fact that it's so easy to get distracted, and with such a wealth of opportunity to figure out where we should direct our attention first, and kind of triaging our all the resources that we have, how we can best organize this to get students involved in a way that has longevity, because I'm only going to be at Ohio State for 2.5 more years, and I want the things that we set up to outlast us. Thank you for that question.
You are truly an inspiration to all of us here for the work you've been doing related to the medical humanities. So thank you again so much. Those were both the questions in the Q&A, but Anna and I will hang out on here for a little longer if someone wants to type another question or raise their hand, just unmute and speak. But otherwise, Anna, you are such an amazing accomplished person, and you're going to do amazing things with the medical humanities here. So thank you so much for taking the time to share this with us today.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. Your kind words are a little over the top, it feels like, from my perspective, Allison, but thank you so much for them. I appreciate it.